So let me start with a question that sounds simple, but absolutely isn't. When we say agentic AI, what are we actually arguing about? The technology or the robot-driven, autonomously driven fantasy we've already built around what it is we want it to do for us? Because right now, a lot of very smart marketing teams are burning a whole heck of a lot of energy debating whether something is, really agentic AI. And almost none of that energy is being spent on, well, whether it's actually useful or not. That's the problem we're going to unpack in this part 2 of my January series on getting ready to be ready for agentic AI. So let's fire up the robot and roll. So as I talked about last week, innovation, any innovation, never arrives alone. It always shows up with friends, usually chaotic ones that tear up the joint as we're trying to have the party. What I talked about last week is that every major shift brings new ways for things to go sideways. And history's pretty clear on this. The rules, the systems, and us, getting good at the innovation, they don't make the innovation perfectly safe. They just make whatever damage it simultaneously creates tolerable. Now, we could empty a whole bottle of wine on what actually tolerable means in any innovation, but generally speaking, we typically find that equilibrium for anything that lasts. And at some point, we just lower the blast radius on the innovation until everybody goes, yeah, I can live with that. So get comfortable now because AI, especially agentic AI, is about to introduce a whole new flavor of acceptable chaos, and most teams are already arguing about the wrong thing. You see, what I see out there is the loudest debate in AI and marketing right now among teams isn't technical, it's not ethical, it's not even philosophical, it's semantic. It's, well, what counts as real agentic AI? How autonomous is autonomous actually? Or how autonomous does it have to be before we qualify it as doing AI the right way? How much human involvement actually disqualifies agentic AI? And by the way, even the companies building these systems can't really agree. For example, Google tends to describe agentic AI as a highly capable co-pilot, a smart assistant that extends human ability, analysis, development, retrieval, but still assumes a human hand on the wheel. Amazon, on the other hand, treats agentic AI as an engine for autonomous operations, systems designed to run complex processes with minimal human involvement, optimized, speed, scale. If AI were a car, basically Google says, well, agentic AI is power steering, and Amazon's, it's cruise control. Same car, very different assumptions about who's at the wheel. So yeah, agentic is jargon, marketing jargon these days, but it's already starting to wear out its welcome. Businesses are being, given the business, quite honestly, about the term. It's being slapped onto glorified macros, slightly smarter chatbots, vendors who either don't understand how work actually happens or are so desperately chasing the hype cycle of the quarter that they slap it on everything. The label is basically inflating faster than the substance. My favorite example, a massive AI vendor proudly told me that their agentic system could attend meetings on my behalf, summarize them, capture action items without me ever showing up to the meeting. And that sounds impressive until you think about it for 5 seconds, because if a meeting is so low value that no one needs to attend, not even me, why would anything that comes out of it deserve my attention later? Why would I read the notes? Why would I take action? Why would I have to? This meeting could have been an email, but personified, right? But even worse than that, because everybody sent their AI avatars to this meeting that could have been an email, and now they all co-authored the email, and now you still have to read it or find out what your agent volunteered you for that you don't want to do. That's not progress. That's bureaucracy with basically better automated branding. So let me be really precise about what I mean about agentic AI in marketing, because here's my working definition for marketing. These are autonomous systems that can plan, reason, and take action toward complex goals with minimal human intervention, behaving less like tools and more like proactive digital coworkers. Now, some of those use cases are silly. Some of them genuinely powerful that I've seen. Dismissing all of it would be certainly short-sighted, but swallowing the hype whole is just as dangerous. If we want durable marketing value, durable marketing capability, and that's what we all want, right? Right? I mean, if that's what we all want, then real capability, not just AI-flavored activity, we've got to have a better way to evaluate what's in front of us. And that's where my agentic AI use case quadrant comes in. I tried to come up with a sort of cute name for it, but that felt kind of dumb. So yeah, the agentic AI use case quadrant, it is, and it's boring, I know, but hopefully this is going to be helpful for you. Now, this isn't a maturity model. It's not a roadmap. It's not a value judgment. It's simply a way to classify agentic AI use cases based on two questions every meaningful innovation eventually has to answer. One, does it improve an existing capability or does it create a new one? And two, is the primary value efficiency or expanded capability, which is often less efficient at first? Plot those on two axes and you get four very different bets. So have a look. So the bottom right, I call these refinements. These are existing capabilities made more efficient with the innovation. Things like tagging, first pass analysis, translation localization, low risk, easy ROI, not flashy, but valuable. This is where the teams answer the very popular question, what can we do with fewer people involved? This quadrant is relatively low risk and ROI is pretty easy to articulate because trust has already been earned in this process. The systems execute patterns in teams that, well, people have validated through experience, applying judgment humans have already agreed on, well, rather than introducing new decisions or novel interpretations of those decisions. Refinement use cases don't generate the splashiest of headlines, though. They're often the most and first valuable because, part of agentic AI deployments because they're easy. They very quickly answer the question that everybody seems to want answered. What can we do with those fewer people? Above that, enhancement. Enhancements are new capabilities and more efficient. Examples here include intelligent task prioritization, dynamic cross-channel coordination of content and messaging, automated optimization against known marketing objectives. These are high leverage use cases because they operate at a level above individual tasks, shaping prioritization, coordination, and trade-offs across multiple systems. But that leverage only materializes when the underlying workflows, goals, decision logic are already very well understood by the company. And without that clarity, enhancements don't amplify effectiveness, they simply amplify the confusion. And so, baseline has to be set there. Bottom left, supplements. Now, this one messes with people's heads a little bit because these are existing capabilities that may actually become less efficient at first. Why would we ever want to do that? Take an existing capability and make it less efficient? Because the value isn't always speed. It's sometimes judgment, deep research, pressure testing strategies, challenging assumptions, slowing down, exploring creative paths that we never had time for. I know this firsthand, for example. My work, when I do long-form content, now takes 2 to 3 times longer. It's hopefully better, but the thinking is better because I pressure test it. I take more time using agentic AI to do that. Ironically, this is where most practitioners want to use AI and where leadership struggles to approve it because it runs directly against the dominant narrative of speed and replacement. And finally, top left, complement. New capabilities that don't scale cleanly yet. Now, this is what the vendors are hyping the hardest and what most organizations are least prepared for to run responsibly. Examples here include autonomous planning or automated cross-system execution. Think customer response emails generated in a CMS, enriched with CRM data, personalization, and distributed through some marketing automation platform. These use cases typically require an ongoing focus and effort on mature data sets, clear authority models, real governance, and likely more, not fewer people to work on all of that. Without those elements, these projects are going to collapse under their own ambition. Agentic AI providers hype this quadrant aggressively because they're cool, they're sexy, and yet, for most organizations, these capabilities aren't ready for prime time. And few organizations are even still equipped with the skills, the staffing, and operational resilience required to manage the ongoing infrastructure upkeep, governance, and the inevitable failures, those disasters that are going to come with running autonomous systems at this level and at this scale. So, why does using a tool like this even matter? Or at least, having the conversation like this with this tool matter? So over the last 18 months, me and my colleagues have analyzed more than 500 agentic AI use cases across businesses. Most of the projects, 45% of them in fact, are trying to implement, that the teams are trying to implement, and yes, trying is doing a lot of work in that sentence, fall into the supplement quadrant. These are jobs that were previously deprioritized because they required too much effort. Deeper research, structural content tagging, improving copy rather than just producing it faster, translation and localization, more rigorous pressure testing, more thoughtful planning, and more creative exploration. AI didn't make these jobs unnecessary for people to perform. It made them worth doing again, quality doing again. So the struggle, and why trying was doing so much work in that ironic sentence, is that the experiments in this category are often labeled failures because they don't always reduce time or cost or headcount. And in fact, they require more skill, more governance, and sometimes more humans with more human judgment. Senior leaders most often expect enhancement use cases in which new capabilities arrive and efficiency improves. But by the way, these represent the smallest share of the projects we see, only about 6% of the active projects. That gap is the rub. Leaders tend to assume that agentic AI will deliver new capabilities with fewer people and less time. Practitioners are finding that the actual value is in more people with deeper skills doing things they've never been able to do before. And until you acknowledge that difference and rectify it, everybody's going to walk away disappointed. So no, agentic AI isn't the point. Alignment is. If you can decide what kind of value you're actually betting on before the chaos hits, you might just save yourselves from yourselves. So you can find a link to my full article in the body of the post. And just remember, once you strip away the buzzwords, most debates about agentic AI, they're not about intelligence at all. They're about expectations and setting those expectations, speed, efficiency, headcount, value, and whether this technology is supposed to replace work we're doing or reveal new work worth doing. So instead of asking what agentic AI is, let's start asking what kind of value it's designed to create. And next week, we'll take those definitions and take the biggest leap of all, which is, all right, with these use cases, how much authority should we be giving to agentic AI and when? So until I see you next week, remember, it's your story. Have the right conversation about AI and then tell it well. I'll see you next week.